Hello everybody. Welcome back to another Shadowverse Worlds Beyond video. Today we're making a different type of video because today I'm going to be commenting and kinda giving you the rundown about the recent chaos that was Shadowverse Open Preliminaries number 1. As somebody that literally finished the entire tournament from start to finish. And yes, I'm recording this literally after the tournament just concluded. So please bear with me if I sound a bit tired. Just a heads up, by the way, this is not going to be me crashing out about the tournament like what some of you guys might expect, because trust me, if I had the energy to do so, I probably would. So yeah. So here are some of the stuff that you might want to know about this tournament before I continue talking about it. So first off, the tournament check-ins started at 11 p.m. GMT plus 8 around like 8 a.m. PST. So yeah, 11:45 p.m. to be exact, GMT plus 8. So it's gonna be around 8:45 a.m. PST. The matches were scheduled to start around 1 a.m. GMT plus 8, which is around 10 a.m. PST. It was a Swiss format tournament, meaning players are matched with other players that have the same record as them, and everybody that goes 8 or more wins out of the 10 matches that they will be playing, because we'll be playing 10 rounds, will advance to the playoffs. There were 1,024 slots or players and also a wait list. Right, so that was the max capacity. The matches were best of 1, 2 decks with no bans, and open deck list. Open deck list means that they know what decks you'll be running through an Excel doc that they provide us with. You might be wondering, what happened? Well, let's start with the scheduling. First, instead of starting the matches on time, it was delayed for almost 3 hours. Yes. 3 hours just to start round number 1. And one of the reasons behind this was because of a lot of technical issues with the website they were using. And also, because of this delay, a lot of people were suddenly dropping. And so the people on the wait list wanted in, right? Because there was a wait list. And of course, that was a very chaotic period. People were dropping out. People from the wait list wanted to be in while they were still finalizing the bracket. So they couldn't proceed with the tournament. It was very chaotic. There were a lot of people that stayed up very late. I know somebody that from my community that stayed up until like 5 a.m. their time just to see if they got in the tournament. And spoiler alert, they didn't. Straight up, other people just dipped from the tournament because the delay was too long, which is understandable. It's a very inconvenient thing to wait for 3 hours for your first game and then find out that there's gonna be even more delays, right? Like you'll just won't play the entire tournament in the first place. So yeah, right? They told us the expected time was around what, 5 to 6 hours supposedly, but that's like very very different on what actually happened. I won't get into too much of the details about the specific technical issues that they had, but I'll show you a screenshot of the exact reasons as to why these delays happened in the first place. Feel free to pause the video if you're interested in that. Now moving on. I am not kidding when I say that this tournament went on for an entire 13 hours. That's more hours than 9 to 5 shit, man. Like literally, that's more than an entire work shift. And amid the chaos, though of course there were some funny memes that emerged and people posting Filene's card art in the chat to, like lighten up the mood a bit, but it became really obvious that most of the players were pissed, and to be honest, it started to affect me as well, because we were literally almost 10 hours into the tournament and my pool was still around round 6 or something. So yeah, that basically covers most of what happened in terms of the delays and the chaotic tournament thingy and what people are complaining about, saying it's the worst ever experience ever, and I can't really blame them for that. So, you might be wondering, Nero, why would you and the other players even continue playing in this tournament if it was so messy? Well, there are a bunch of reasons as to why. One of them was, of course, an in-game emblem, basically participation rewards, right? So if you see somebody with this emblem, you might be looking at a prelim number one survivor, right? And of course, the chances of getting into the top eight for the playoffs increase since you see a lot of people dropping, you see a lot of people getting DQ'd. So you're like, oh, wait, that kind of increases my shot at like getting top eight in the playoffs, which guarantees me prize money, right? And of course, some people don't want to miss out on that, and that's kind of, it's not about the competitive integrity of how you got it. For to some people, of course, it's, money talks, man. It is what it is. Now, with all of that out of the way, here's some of my comments slash opinions about the tournament. First off, the best of one, two decks no ban format sucks. And a lot of pros already talked about this, but I thought it was gonna be fine. But now that I experienced it myself, I kind of have to agree with them now. While you might think this is to reward people into making two decks that can play into every matchup, it instead turned into a rock paper scissor minigame on who picks the counter pick to who, or just end up getting a mirror because both of you guys are scared into playing like the counter pick to the other. So, if you're confused, let me give you a perfect example. Let's say that player 1 is playing Ward Haven and Spell Boost Rune, and player 2 is running Roach Forest and Midrange Sword. Now, if you don't know how matchup works, right, I'll be putting something on the screen to help you, like, keep up with this. Roach Forest counters Spell Boost Rune, or is favored against Spell Boost Rune. Ward Haven hard counters Roach. And Rune is advantage over Sword. And then lastly, Sword is also really good against Haven because of Gildaria and all of the value that Sword has. But we're not gonna get into that. Alright? So, since there are no deck bans, both players will literally just rock, paper, and scissor on who gets the counter matchup. In this case, like let's say player 1 picked like Rune, and then player 2 thinking that like a player 2 like thinking that they'll pick Havencraft because they have Forest, right? They pick Sword, so he plays into Spell Boost Rune all of a sudden, and it's not as favored, right? Personally, I don't like this. Yeah. Because there will be a lot more cases of the player with better knowledge of the game losing, right? I'm not saying that, oh, but he lost still against somebody that quote unquote had lesser knowledge against them or something, or was not as good as them. But matchups are a real thing in this game, and you probably know by now, right? Like something as extreme as Roach versus Wardhaven is weird, right? Like even something as simple as Sword and Portal could be really annoying. Like to know that you'll be fighting into that because just because of the rock paper scissor guessing game with your opponent. For competitive integrity, I just really don't like that. So yeah, next point. Next up is the tournament waitlist. Now I understand the Shadowverse Open organizers wanted to include everybody that they can, but I think trying to please everybody ended up pleasing nobody instead. So this waitlist wasn't really implemented until like recently, after a lot of people like demanded for it, right? Because the signups filled up really quickly. I know the organizers didn't want any of this to happen, but with the amount of people that were working on this 1024 player tournament, I think they shouldn't have bit more than they can chew, right? It was kind of obvious that they were understaffed for this amount of players in a tournament, which resulted into situations not being easy to adapt to. So if they get put into situations that they have to adapt to, like technical issues, it becomes 10 times worse. in terms of the amount of time it would take to manually do everything on the back end. And that's exactly what happened earlier, right? Big shout out to the admins that did their best, right? They literally did everything they humanly can to proceed with the tournament, right? They were late in announcing prelim 2 being cancelled and all that, and a lot of other stuff was going on. Not really gonna get into that, but yeah, like they tried, right? And the event finished in the end, but it was really horrible, you know? It was really horrible. If I remember correctly, the Japan tournament did like a beta test for their tournament, and I think they should have done something like that, or something like a more realistic simulation of a tournament, so stuff like this doesn't happen. I mean, I'm pretty sure like they probably did that, but there was just some stuff that was out of control, and suddenly they just got put into that situation, and they couldn't really like deal with it as fast as they want to, or what everybody wanted. Finally, right? Next up. The competitive integrity, I think, is nowhere to be found in this tournament at all. Shadowverse, Worlds Beyond, Shadowverse in general, it's kinda known for a card game that doesn't have too much RNG on it. Of course, it's a card game, there's always gonna be a lot of variance, but it is not as bad as, let's say, Yogg-Saron in Hearthstone or something. If you guys know, you guys know. Yeah, like basically it's not as random, right? It's a more controlled random type of card game. But this tournament specifically, I think the competitive integrity is kind of nowhere to be found at all. A lot of the people literally had match histories that look like this, which made the entire tournament kind of a lottery, to be honest. If you roll the players that dropped, that weren't removed from the tournament because of the technical issues, you just get a lot of wins for free, right? That could result in you being qualified for just beating like the people that weren't as good and then just existing after that. So imagine, right? There's the rock paper and scissors thing. There's the fact that it's a BO1. There's the fact that you could just like roll into more buys, or like you can just roll into more people that drop, and that will be like your ticket to qualifying for the top 8. I can't really look at this tournament and call it real because of that. Yeah, because apparently you kind of need competitors for a competition. All right. Because of a lot of people dropping due to the delays and all that, and then kind of brute forcing continuing the tournament, it just kind of turned into that. It was scuff. And to be honest, it was such a big disappointment because this was supposed to be one of the biggest Shadowverse like tournaments ever, like for the Western side. Because back then SVO didn't really had a lot of like competitors. Now there's a lot, and if there's a lot of players that are competing for the first time, like this is not a really good experience for them, and it sucks. It is what it is, right? If you're wondering how some players did in the tournament, considering all of this was happening, well, let's just say that having hours and hours of delay in between your matches, alongside that BO1 like rock paper scissors minigame that they implemented as a tournament format, right? Isn't really nice for your mental since you're not as locked in. Kind of ruins momentum, right? Let's say you play a match, then you wait for 1 hour, like this match right here. I waited 1 hour just for this match after I literally finished it in 6 turns. And then I was like, damn, all my momentum's gone, right? Like, and of course you'll be tired of waiting. You're just waiting and waiting. You want to keep playing, but you can't. This would result in people being tired, so they'll be misplaying more or straight up tilting. Personally, I didn't really do well as I didn't really do well like the others, right? But it wasn't because of tilt. It wasn't because of tiredness. I'm kind of used to being tired in tournaments. But the reason why I think I didn't do well was mostly because I wasn't having fun. Yeah. And as a person that spent most of their life playing in tournaments like this and even hosting tournaments myself, especially when I was still active in Dota 1, Dota 2, right? I always found the competition thrilling and exciting, but because of all of these factors that are happening, I legit just couldn't have fun at all. I didn't feel like there were any real stakes. I didn't really feel that there was really real competition. So with all that said, I hope the tournament organizers fix Shadowverse open because it was really disappointing knowing that we had thousands of signups for it. Right, big shout out to the players that I met during the tournament, especially the first guy I fought. Like he was screwed by the website. He couldn't check in, right? But we ended up playing each other anyway for the funsies, and like I probably wouldn't quit playing SB tournaments, right? They were really fun at the start. That my first two matches at least, right? So I'm gonna give it another shot. But to the people that are quitting playing in SV tournaments because of this one horrendous experience, I can't really blame anybody for doing that. Right? There were some people like from the Magic the Gathering, like pro scene as well, that played and they were like, this was the worst experience they've ever had. And I can't really blame them for that, you know? Right. So, as a final note, here is the apology from the tournament organizers that they sent to us mid tournament. And all I can say is, I'm begging you guys. Come on. I'm on my knees, dude. Please, please make prelims number two better. Okay. So, yeah. Here's to all the prelim emblem survivors. You guys are the goats. You know who you are, right? And yeah, I hope you guys have a good rest after all of that. And with that said, that'll be it for me for this video. I'll be taking a day off probably after this to cool off from, the rough day that I just experienced. Don't worry, I'm pretty sure they'll probably like make it better. At least I hope. And yeah, good luck everybody and congratulations to all the players that advanced. And I'm gonna see you in the next video, everybody. Bye bye. I'm going to bed.